This
Hello,
meeting is being recorded. I will continue.
Very good. All righty. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this special series. Usually we'd be doing a member spotlight, but we are doing something really unique and special, which is we are doing a Rabbis in Uniform spotlight. So we are going to be talking to various rabbis who are serving in the U.S. military. And this is something that's very important to me. Some of you might know my grandfather served in World War II as a chaplain, and my father-in-law was part of the U.S. Navy, and my stepson also was a member of the U.S. Navy. So military service is really important, and I even thought about going down this path myself. And I think for me, it was something that was very special about serving God and serving country. And so for this, I thought it'd be great to welcome in Rabbi Yoni Warren, who is part of the U.S. Navy. And Yoni, where are you talking to us from today? And also, why don't you share your rank? Give you credit where credit is due.
So I am a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy. I'm calling from Portsmouth, Virginia, which is just outside of Norfolk. I am one of the hospital chaplains at the Navy Medicine Readiness and Training Command here in Portsmouth. It's the overarching hospital system for, honestly, the Navy and Army Air Force installations that are out here.
Great, great. And so, you know, this is the reason that we're also doing this is I think sometimes congregants that are in congregations are sort of surprised to really think about rabbis being in the military. So is this something that you've done for your whole career since graduation from rabbinical school, or did you dabble in the other sectors of whether that be pulpit or other chaplains in hospitals or schools? Has this been thus far lifetime Navy rabbi?
I wouldn't call it lifetime Navy rabbi. It's been so far career Navy rabbi. I dabbled in the pulpit arts a little bit when I was in the rabbinical school era. In fact, it was never my intention to go full-time career Navy rabbi. There was a period in which I thought about it as an alternative. And as I was leaving rabbinical school, as I was starting to come into those final 2 years, really, that urge started to pull a little bit more. The job market looked scarier and scarier, and the infighting amongst people for pulpit jobs looked just not fun. And the Navy was calling, and they had really cool uniforms, and they promised exotic getaways. Come join the Navy and see the world. And who am I to argue with that? So I joined the Navy directly out of rabbinical school. Within a month, I was officially in active duty. And then 6 months later, I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. So it's been a little voyage. When I was in my second tour of duty, I was the chaplain at the Naval Academy. And while I was there, I also ended up pushed into a side job of running a synagogue in downtown Annapolis, one of the older synagogues there. So I was also pulpit rabbi while being a full-time Navy chaplain. I don't recommend it. I've heard you can do full-time rabbi and reservist Navy chaplain. I know a couple of successful players in that field, but no, full-time Navy rabbi, full-time pulpit rabbi, not recommended.
Great.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned Navy, and as people who are watching or maybe don't know, that was also sort of the route I went when I was a candidate for this potentially. And a question that I think a lot of service members get, or maybe is, well, why that branch? Like, do you really like boats? Do you really have a fear of heights and you don't want to be in a plane? Or do you just right? So there are different reasons that I think people go into whichever branch of service that they choose. So I'm curious, why the Navy? Besides, they do have, I think, the coolest uniforms.
By far the coolest uniforms. Except for, I actually hate this uniform that I'm wearing right now. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know why we wear it. It came out after I joined the Navy. I think if it was out when I was joining, it would not have been my choice option. First off, you're going to see more heights in the Navy than you do in the Air Force. Those guys stay on the ground and in base chapels like it's their jobs. If as we look around the different branches, if you look around the branches, the Air Force in particular, and this I'm sure when Rabbi Davidson or any other Air Force rabbi comes on, totally say he's wrong. That's not what they build chapels and golf courses, and they stay in their chapels, and sometimes they go to the golf course. And when the fighter pilots back, or when the bombers come back, or when the Minutemen people come up from their little holes in the ground, they come to the chapels and they interact with the chaplains there. The Navy has never been like that. We tend to embed more, much like the Army does, into the units. We, in fact, will spend a lot of our careers either on a ship or attached to a Marine battalion or regiment, or something of a similar operational ilk. And for me, that's everything. Honestly, I spent in total of a 10-year almost career, 9-10 years. Much of that, I think 6 of those years have been with operational units, either with Marines wandering from place to place on a ship, as an embarked person on a ship. And in 2 of those years, I was actually assigned to the ship. And for those people of the ship, I am their chaplain, whether they're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, pagan, none of the above. I don't even like chaplains. It doesn't matter. I'm still your chaplain. And I like that concept. Why the Navy really, though? I'm a Navy brat. My father was a QM, a quartermaster in the Navy, which unlike the Army, it's like supply. In the Navy, a QM does navigation. They're Maui in Moana. They put their hands up and the star, celestial navigation is still their world. And before that, he was a Marine. So with the last name Warren, there's a little bit of story there, is that my father converted to Judaism shortly after high school. But he also joined the Marines shortly after high school. And he said, quote, "I didn't want to miss any of the action in Nam." And he did not. He missed very little of the action, much to his not benefit. And his first real Passover Seder didn't happen with a regular family. It happened on the island of Vieques, as they were doing in Puerto Rico, as they were doing practice landings from the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force in their plannings and their workups for going to Vietnam. And he tells the story of his first Passover Seder, where he was sitting because some random rabbi had been told, "Congratulations, you're joining the Navy or Marine Corps." That's how it used to be. But that guy allowed him to eat his first real matzah at a Seder. He was sitting next to another Marine who informed him that horseradish was best taken in by resting it on your tongue, resting it on your tongue, and then breathing in through your mouth and out through your nose. Not a good idea, but memorable. Yeah. And it's part of, as we tell stories of Passover Seders, I'm sure a lot of families, they tell these stories of, my Bubby and Zadie would go through the Seder. Like, my father's Passover stories are this Passover story.
Right.
His second Passover was in Saigon on R&R while his battalion was in Quezon. Like, these are important stories that are passed down in my family as like the original Passover Seder that Moshe Rabbeinu had. So for me, it was saying, okay, I can do 3 years of this. I don't need to do it forever. It wasn't a career idea, but if nobody's in this class of 20, one of the biggest classes that they've had at JTS, 20 people at JTS, another 8 from Ziegler, none of these people can raise their hand and say, hey, I can give it 3 years. Then we're failing the military personnel. We're failing as members of this national society. And so I can do this for 3 years. And that's what I did.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. That's such a unique first Passover experience, I'm sure, to think about doing it that way. I can only imagine that. And it's really interesting though, like, because as you said, like the typical sort of stories that we have of growing up or being around the congregation is like, yeah, my bubby came over, we did this and that. And then you just shared, like, you know, you've been away for holidays, I'm sure, and your day doesn't look like my day, right? Like you and I were setting up this, and I was like, well, I have a Zoom meeting with the president, and then I have to talk and teach a Parsha class, and then I have to arrange a program for Hanukkah, right? Like that's what my day looks like, at least today for a little bit. But I know that your days look a little bit different and it depends on the day. So I'm curious if you could just pull back the curtain and say what you do in your position and how it differs from, you know, other rabbis in pulpit work.
So it's hard to say. And right now, COVID makes everything kind of crazy. And also each of my jobs have been different. So my first job was with Marines. My second job was the Naval Academy. My third job was aboard ship, and my fourth job is a hospital. And all of those are completely legitimate, normal Navy jobs, each with their own positives and negatives. Almost all of them have some sort of, you need to build physical training into your day somehow. You better do push-ups, you better run, you better maybe do some planks or something like that I should do that I definitely didn't do but need to do. I also didn't run today because I've been sick all week. And so to say that today is a normal day is not a normal day. But on a normal day, we'll be at work. We'll have our first meeting at work at 7 a.m. And probably need to be at work by 6:30. So I haven't been able to go to a morning minyan in a really long time, except for days off. So after the morning meeting, assuming no other crises popped up overnight. And the morning meeting is a turnover from the duty, whoever is on duty, which was until recently me. We'll tell everything that happened that night. If they got phone calls, we actually use pagers here, like it's 1995. All that Navy technology they tell you about, it's only in the fancy commercials. We're pretty far back. And then I'll spend about, I'll be able to pull off about 30 minutes for davening / mindfulness / just getting away from people, which helps me start my day. After that, we're embedded. So all of our congregants work here in a very real way. The hospital that I'm at now has we have 3 staff chaplains plus a few residents who work here also. And I'm assigned to labor and delivery, pediatrics, and NICU. Not just to the patients, though we have our fair share of patients that come through that system, but to the staff also. My primary obligation is to those staff is to check in with them and to care for them, or to, you know, we had a whole series this past week of intrauterine fetal demises of perinatal loss. That affects the staff. It affects the patients. There's a lot of loss and grief that's going on, but you know, I think my NICU staff in particular have been like begging for someone to come through and just hit one of the cradles with sage, and because somebody told them that will get rid of Dybbuk's. They're very, very, very superstitious people, whether they're religious or not, in all of those wards. Sometimes it involves caring for the patients. We get called in day of surgery a lot, and we get called in for other things. This past week was a rough week. We had one gunshot wound victim who that was kind of her wake-up call to that she needs to slow down. Well, now that she's had that experience, now she's internalized that, what does that mean for her, and how does she process moving forward? She's not psychologically broken, but she feels lost, and she feels lost. And in that experience, she wants to talk to a chaplain, because there's also things that she needs to get off her chest that are fully confidential. And that doesn't happen in a psychologist's office, not in the same way, at least not in the Navy psychologist's office. So for her, we're a resource that she keeps calling upon. We have oncology staff. We also have oncology patients. A lot of them are young people. My population in the hospital is mostly sailors and Marines and airmen. Like they're not. We do have our fair share of older patients, retirees, but there's a lot of young people here. And when you're in the best shape of your life, you run 2 miles every day in under 15 minutes. You're not supposed to. You are supposed to if it's supposed to happen, but you're not supposed to get cancer. You're not supposed to get that kind of diagnosis. But there's a lot of things you can't control, and so when people get those diagnoses, they tend to turn to us. When their kids come out and they're not healthy, they come to us. So that's a lot of my day. On a regular day, I'll tend to leave the hospital around 5 p.m. at the earliest, maybe 5:30. And I have administrative work too. I run a couple programs here. I run a couple groups here. And I also tend to the Jews. So somewhere in there that gets worked out. Every so often they'll say, hey, we need to send you somewhere. And that can happen. So this past Yom Kippur, for example, I did services at the Commodore Levy Chapel, which is the oldest Jewish chapel in the entire military. It's on at the Naval Station in Norfolk. I ran, did a Kol Nidre. We did live services because there is no cell phone reception on that base. So if you're assigned to a ship, if you're assigned to a command, you cannot Zoom in service, you cannot live stream service, you need to go to the live service. So we ran a service there with about 30, 40 people on any given service. And then I went over to the USS Dwight Eisenhower, which was pulled in just for that day, completely randomly. And I led Kol Nidre services over there before they went back out to sea. They were gone for the longest deployment without a port visit just recently. And then as soon as they came back, they were told, congratulations, it's time to do a workup. You're going back out again. They need chaplain love like no one's business. And the Jews there, they got their Passover supplies, I think, in June.
Wow.
So they're fix that for the next go round. And they actually did a decent Passover Seder. The lay leader on the ship was telling me that they pulled some stuff together. It was very veggie heavy. But it's amazing what you can do with some potatoes and some celery to put together a meal. But they to get a rabbi on board for Yom Kippur meant everything to them. And then 3 ships down was a cruiser that also had about 4 Jews on it, and we did another thing for them. And then I went to bed. And then I started again the next day. So even my Yom Kippur doesn't look like a Yom Kippur for normal people. I was exhausted and nearly dead by the end of it. But the good news is my congregants aren't as demanding about my voice or that we sing exactly this tune because, we always sing it this tune. How dare you sing Hayom to a different tune? What are you, crazy? Right. So what people complain about from me is totally different from what they complain about for you. What they want from me is usually a little bit more basic than what they want from you. And what they attend is also not as, not as generally as much as they attend for you, which is the sad part for my job. Is you never know how many people are going to show up. Right. Sometimes, 5 people on a Friday night, and sometimes it's 20. And honestly, to try to put together a Shabbat morning service here is impossible. So I go to the local congregation.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely different. I from my brief time of just sort of following it and seeing it, it's tough. And I think the thing that's really unique from sort of how it was pitched to me, let's say, about what it is that, everybody in the military has their job that they're supposed to do, and their goal is to get that accomplished, right? And so your instructors, like, that they care about you as a person, and like the larger essence of you being a person, they care about you. but they don't necessarily have the time to be like, oh, how's your day going? Like they want you to take care of something and accomplish that goal. And the way that it was brought to me by another chaplain is your job is to give a damn. Like your job is to have that time to do that, because that's not necessarily, always feels like that's available to you. And that's a very important thing for the chaplain, like you just said, for people who are, as they describe it to me, somebody has never left home, they're from the middle of the country, their dog just died, and their girlfriend or boyfriend just broke up with them, and they're away for the first time. Here you go. Right? And that's, I think, very true. And that's very different than what a lot of congregational rabbis deal with, to say the least. And so you sort of have talked about your different places that you've been because of different jobs, or, you've gone different places because of your all expense paid tour given courtesy of the US government, as it's like to be referred to. Is there one of your jobs or one of the things or places that you've been, maybe whether it was just for a brief time or whether it was Okinawa, which I know was a little bit longer, that stands out to you, that really has taught you something about what it means to be a military chaplain? Or is there just something that when you have your chaplain story that you really like to share, is there one that jumps out to your mind?
That's a good question. It's a hard question. So yeah, I've been deployed a bit. So Okinawa was actually exceptional because it's considered a deployment, though I bring my wife came with me to Okinawa. But then I deployed from Okinawa. So I'm deployed from a deployed place. And other people actually deploy out there as like they're, this is our battalion deploying. It's totally a weird, crazy land. And they drive on the wrong side of the road, and they drive very slowly in little cars. Don't recommend it to anyone who's tall. I would say actually, it was my last deployment would be the one I would go to. My deployment aboard ship. I was the ship's chaplain. I was the only chaplain aboard the ship. It's a weird ship. It's called an LSD, a landing ship dock. Basically, it's a big old Navy pickup truck. It's kind of beat up, dirty, and old, and everybody makes fun of it until they need a buddy with a big old pickup truck, and then they call us. Its primary use is dropping off AAVs, amphibious assault vehicles. So we pick up a bunch of Marines in these little 20-person kind of tank looking things, and they swim ashore and take a beach. We also have all sorts of we're able to carry a lot of cargo for Marines. So it's not really, it's not something that you're looking at to bomb beaches. It's something you're looking at to drop Marines off at beaches. So our crew is about 350, 325, 350, depending on the day. And then we pick up about 400 plus Marines, somewhere in there. Everything is sectioned off into, this is a green space, this is a blue space, because after a couple months of being together in what's not a very big space, things happen. People get antsy, they get angry, they get claustrophobic. It's just, it's not the most pleasant experience in life. We fix some of that by having decent gyms, because if Marines do nothing else, it's either they wait online or they go to the gym. Sometimes they wait online not knowing what they're waiting online for. They just wait on that line because it's there. And it might end with Monsters or Red Bull. It might end with a haircut. It might end with breakfast. Who knows? But it's better than sitting in your rack and just being sad all day. And the sailors go to work. They go to work. They work. And then when they get to the gym, they just want the gym. They don't want to have a bunch of Marines who have been sitting in the gym all. It's like a whole thing. But I was the only chaplain for effectively 750 people.
Wow.
Of, different castes, religious backgrounds, faith groups, family backgrounds, families of origin, locations that they came from, expectations of the military. And some of them very fresh flew in. It would be, you could count it to the day, exactly 2 months after we went to sea. That's when the first Dear John started showing up. That's when grandmothers start dying. It's amazing how quickly it happens. But in the Navy, you can go home. We'll send you home. We'll fly you back for a parent. We'll fly you back for a spouse. We'll fly you back for a child. But a grandmother, no. Unless she or your grandfather were in local apprentice and identified that they raised you without your parents for a year. Yeah. And so, but that doesn't mean that they're not important to you. And a lot of people live in these structures where their grandmother lived, the next house down, which might have been a mile away, but they lived, that was a very close relation for them. And being without that is really hard. That's a real loss. Being told, despite everything, you can't go home. We need you. Or even for sometimes there's the case where we can't let you home because you're the only person who can do your job. You're the only person that knows that has the rate that operates the defensive, what's it called? There's a system on the ship that's, it shoots bullets at any missile that comes in, theoretically. Hopefully we don't get a missile. But as we're transiting through the Suez Canal and down next to Yemen, it'd be really nice to have the guy on board who knows, or all the people on board who know how to work that system. And we just can't lose you. We can lose you in a week from now even, but just not yet. And that week is a hard week.
Right.
That transit's a hard transit. And sitting with people in their pain, letting them be in their pain, but also comforting them and caring for them, that for me is when it turned on from more of the full chaplaincy that I expected on deployment than anything else. And it was wonderful. It was great. And I made connections and supported people through life events that then connected even after we left the ship, even after their time aboard. Rabbi Elson likes to say, you're still the rabbi. They might go through chaplain after chaplain after chaplain, but you're still the rabbi. And it's worked that way in a lot of different ways. And it's been valuable.
Yeah, that's the thing that in just talking with different service members and to my recruiter when I was going through it, and how he would share with me about like how the chaplain for them in the Marines was a very an honored position. Like they were like, come on, chaps, you're coming with us. Like, let's go. Like, you're going to be part of this. And there's this idea that like once things sort of get real after, the time frame has passed, it's like, you might not be Jewish, you might be atheist, whatever. Something about a chaplain, there's just some sort of magic aura that I think it provides, comfort on some level, which is what you've been talking about. And so for the last question here is, I would love to hear what you would like to share with people who are watching this sort of about military life, or rabbis who are in the military, or that you guys exist, or even Jews in the military service. As I said, I think a lot of people don't think that there are a lot of Jewish Americans who are service members. And that might be because historically that hasn't really been a path that we have gone as sort of pushing people to encourage maybe looking at. And so what is it that you would like to sort of share as somebody who's in the life of it as military and as a rabbi, but as a Jew as well?
So I've actually been thinking about this question for a couple of days now. I think more and more we get separated more and more from people who are in the military. There's a time in which there was a draft and everybody knew somebody in the military. Of course, your grandfather was in the military because he was a young rabbi at the right time when we needed rabbis. Of course, both of my grandmothers were in the military during World War II. Both of my grandfathers are actually too old. But my grandmothers were both, one was in the Army Air Corps and one was, or the Women's Army Air Corps. And my other grandmother was in the Waves, the Navy version of it, because they were the right age and they could support and they could fight. Like that was what was happening in World War II. And even as the draft continued through Vietnam, we know a lot of Jews who were service members because they were connected through Vietnam. a lot of Jews who went the other way in Vietnam. Like my father-in-law is the prime example of that. He's a rabbi in Forest Hills, and you can read on his feelings about kind of what happened during Vietnam and his response and kind of his tshuva through me. He writes a lot in the Jewish Week in New York. But one is that we're here. Two is that we're not all the crazy gun-toting ura kind of people. We're all types. In our rabbinical ranks, we count both Democrats and Republicans. In the military ranks, we count Democrats and Republicans, and independents and libertarians, and a couple of people who would really like marijuana to be legalized as soon as humanly possible, even though it will never be legalized for us. But we're all over the place. Personally, I think that I would love to see if every single person who got worked up and excited and caring about who was elected president would say, you know what? There's this group of people in the military. They also do. They care. It's about care for our country. It's about care about the future of our country and where it goes, and putting a little bit of the skin in the game. So for me, I want people to know that we exist. We really aren't that big of a number, but we exist. And part of our existence is a lot of that hope for what can be great in this country, for the desire to make our homes, our worlds better for our family members and for our friends and for those who care for us back home. And for thankfulness that this place existed for our ancestors to get the heck out of Russia or Poland whenever it was a good time to get the heck out of Russia or Poland. And that's definitely a lot of the stories that I hear in the military are gratitude. The last thing is that a lot of people are doing this because it gives benefits. Not everybody does it for altruistic reasons, and I wish it was entirely altruistic reasons, but it's not. It does have good benefits, and some of them are college benefits. My daughters are they're the daughters of a woman who went to Barnard College, whose mother went to Barnard College, and whose grandmother went to Barnard College. College is going to be expensive. It's not getting any cheaper. No. So both of them have qualified for my my GI Bill, or half of my GI Bill. So they're going to go to college for half off, and it's a good thing. So even my most altruistic reasons that you heard above, or the most, they're also a little bit personal benefit. And while that seems like, okay, now we're diminishing the path a little bit, I think it's also saying, people in the military were real people. We have monetary issues, and we've got family issues, and we've got dog issues. I definitely have dog issues. And we add to it a little bit more by sometimes deploying away from them and being, gone for. This past year, I was home for the Chagim. That's the first time in a while, and that's just the case how it goes. I hope that I can do better by them for my going away, and I think that's kind of how all military members feel. Like, I'm doing something to try to make this world better for you, for the next generation. But it's going to mean I'm going to go away for a little while.
Right. So. No, that's beautiful. Thank you, Yoni, for that. I mean, I think what you sort of highlighted is, in Judaism, we often talk about how can we make the world a better place? How can we repair it? I would bet 1 out of a million would have just said, "Oh, join the military," right? Of participating Jews would have thought, "Oh, you know what? Another way to tikkun olam, right, is through this type of service to God and to country." And realizing that, I think, is really special. And I think hopefully there might be a shift and change, and maybe people realizing that, and maybe something like this and more series and conversations will hopefully bring that to light, that you know, being able to peel back sort of the little bit of the onion that we can for the military, not too much, obviously, but just a little bit of it, I think is really important. And it's been great talking with you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be here. And everyone, thank you for watching. Greatly appreciated. And we'll have more in the coming weeks as well. Thanks again.